Hi, everyone. We're like,
Yeah.
hi, everyone. Good. I don't know what time of the day it is. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Our Job Data Subcommittee. We will go ahead and get called to order with our welcome introductions and announcements. If we could do a roll call vote for our parties here.
Absolutely. Shannon Ortland. Sorry, I can't hear you guys. Can you say that again, Shannon?
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Mhm.
Patrice Guillory,
Present.
Shayla Bonner,
Here.
Matthew Malone,
Here.
Gilbert Salinas.
Here.
We have 5 members present. Quorum is established.
Thank you, Gary. Next, we want to go ahead and do introduction of folks that are on Zoom. We can start with Denise.
Hi, everyone. I'm Denise Zabkevich with the ORJ.
Ariana.
Hello, my name is Garyana Youngblood, and I am also with the ORJ.
Jill Ray.
Hi there, Jill Ray, Office of Supervisor Candace Anderson.
And Stephanie.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Taddeo, and I'm a member of the public, concerned county resident.
Thank you, everyone. Now we want to open it up for any announcements at this time.
I have an announcement. ORJ is nearing the end of our restorative justice survey. It will be open until November 3rd. So we are really encouraging folks to please take that survey, encourage your colleagues, your networks, the whole shebang. We are hoping to reach at least about 400 responses. We're really close to that. So if any way possible, if you're a resident of Contra Costa, you know other residents of Contra Costa, please be sure to have them take that survey. And we also want to increase our number of responses among young people. So the survey is, young folks can in fact take that survey as well. So if you happen to have preteens or young adults that are in your house as well, you guys can take the survey together. If you don't have access to the survey, if you can, let me know and I will certainly get that out to you. For those on the screen, you're welcome to drop your email in the Q&A box and we'll be sure to get it to you.
When was that deadline?
November 3rd.
Any other announcements? No. All right, we want to go ahead and open it up for public comment on any items under this jurisdiction of the Our Job and not on this agenda today. Are there any public comments? Seeing none. Next on the agenda is our approval of the record of actions for September 28, 2023 data committee meeting. It's attachment 1 of our packet. If we get someone to motion.
Motion.
Get a second. Thank you. And before we vote, is there any public comment before we take a vote? All right, if we could have a roll call vote for the approval.
Shannon Ortland,
Yes.
Patrice Guillory,
Yes.
Gilbert Salinas,
Yes.
Shayla Bonner. Shayla?
Yes.
Oh, okay. and Matthew Malone.
I don't vote. I'm not voting.
Oh, that's correct. Sorry. Motion carries 4 yeses.
Thank you. And then our next item on the agenda is to define the role of our job data subcommittee.
There wasn't an attachment to
Oh.
this. I think this was essentially like a continuation of the previous discussion we had. But if I can give some updates for everybody, just in terms of some overall internal planning that will likely affect all subcommittees. And so I guess we can engage this conversation within that context. So both ORJ and the Burns Institute will soon be convening with all of the R-Job chairs. So that's the co-chairs of the body and then the chairs of all the subcommittees. One, to look at some of the items on the overall work plan for R-Job that have kind of been sitting for some time. There's been some movement on some of those activities, but certainly there's others that are still kind of in the hopper there. And so we wanted to share that with the chairs to identify which of those activities are some low-hanging fruit that can continue to be moved forward, or what are some items that is best to kind of work on. Those are more sort of future pieces once some of the other elements of these recommendations are implemented. So we're hoping to gather some feedback from the leadership in that regard, and then bring it back to the full R-Job to also get feedback on that as well. As we internally looked at some of those pieces that we'll share with the leadership, there were a couple of items that had no movement on at all, that may have some relevancy to the data subcommittee. One of those items in particular had to do with looking at jury selection in terms of looking at the process of jury selection and ensuring if there are ways to ensure that selection of jurors are coming from the respective communities in which a lot of the misdemeanor trials or what have you are taking place. So that's an element of the work that I don't think there had been any conversation around at all. So that might require looking at some data to just kind of, and to get just a better understanding from the courts of what's that process, how it's operated, and then, get a full status of what is sort of the inclusion of the local community in that regard. So that's one example. There are a few others, but so there's some items that will still, I would think, impact some of the work of the data subcommittee. And I know kind of foreshadowing was to come, but just to kind of give you a sense there.
I don't think we touched jury selection at all.
Yeah.
Anything else? I wanted to kind of discuss, and I apologize, I do have brain fog, so I don't fully recall what we talked about last meeting. Like I just said, blowing in the wind. Okay, yeah, I did receive the email from Chris to gather everybody for that discussion. If there's nothing else to add to that, we can move to discussion and review of the R-Job recommendations, which is attachment number 2.
And actually, both item 5 and 6 were added to the packet so that this committee can discuss, or at least just review again the former recommendations. What are some items that we still want to prioritize and highlight? I'm not sure if many of you were in attendance at the last equity committee meeting when Chris from Burns Institute provided an update. And what we heard from at least Supervisor Joya was wanting to see from R-Job some prioritization of the work that's kind of at hand for them. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of look at some of these things to decide, again, like what items do we want to prioritize for the foreseeable future and, work on moving it forward.
And I'm looking at just specifically the data portion of it. Are we still, because I know there was a question back when, where we're like, we getting this data and we want to be able to share it with the public. And we were trying to decide on how to do that. And then, ORESJ was kind of in the mix, so we were still figuring out who would be taking on that capacity. So is it still Office of Reentry and Justice that on the public, the publishing?
So, yeah, we still have that webpage that we manage. There's nothing to manage at this point. It's just the data that's up there now. And so far, we've all kind of halted on providing reports to this committee, as we've done in the prior year. So it's still there. That would be 22, 21. Denise is on the information that on that dashboard, so to speak.
Right. I think we go through 2021, as I recall.
Okay.
So in terms of, in reference to the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, that is still the intention is to work with them and see what could very well be their capacity to take some of this work on. I've not yet had an opportunity to speak to the new directors in their new capacity. I believe I think they start in a couple, or if not next week. So I think we gotta give them a little.
Okay. Yeah. Settle in a little bit.
By the way,
Here you go.
take it. Yeah, so I think that's still a pathway forward.
Yeah.
I try. At the last board of supervisors meeting, though, we did hear from the sheriff who gave Q3 report, and he did mention that he's put in a request for Measure X funds to have a dedicated data analyst and also to, I guess, produce some sort of data transparency kind of website. I'm guessing something similar to a data dashboard for his website, or for the office's website. So, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, District Attorney's Office has now hired a data analyst potentially. So we're at least starting to see that there are justice agencies looking into at least staffing up in that regard. So there could be an opportunity for more regular, at the very least, some data analysis that can be done internally, and then some reporting on some of the items that we're all interested in. We're getting
I just had a question.
Mhm.
At the board meeting, they approved some staffing for the office. Do we know who that is?
This past Tuesday, it was, I don't know. Jill, do you know about that? Or you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I have a lot to say, but I didn't hear, Gilbert, I didn't hear what you asked.
Well, I asked about the staffing. There was apparently 2 staff that were going to be working at the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. That were
Yeah.
coming from this.
Yeah, so what you saw, so that was a sort of a formulation of an office. That was the paperwork that goes behind that. So the 2 directors were named. Kendra Carr is already there, and she is, and so Patrice, I don't think it's too soon to reach out to her, because she's the one that's gonna work with departments. And she is working in the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, I think they said two staff. So
I am so sorry.
Yeah.
The dogs went wackadoodle. So in the first floor of the board chambers, across the hallway is supervisors' offices, and there's a front office area that the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice has taken over. So Kendra is there. I've seen her twice this week so far. Peter Kim is coming in a couple weeks, and he's the one that's the community outreach director. And so so what you saw on the board agenda was the transfer of funds to that office. So the office is already, was established, but the county administrator's office was holding the funds until the people were hired. So all of that is complete. And the other thing I was going to suggest that you could add to your work plan, because as Patrice pointed out, the sheriff did just do his quarterly report on Tuesday, had a fabulous amount of data in it. And there will be some other data points added for the next report. And his plan, and yes, he did ask for funding for data person for that 4.7 million in extra Measure X funds. He put a request in for that bucket of money. And the Board of Supervisors has asked county administrator's office to work with each department that put in a funding request, because all the funding requests exceeded the available funds right now. So they asked the administrator's office to work with each department to identify funding to fill those needs from perhaps other buckets of money. So we're hoping that we can see those positions get lifted up. And his intent is to have a data dashboard that's updated in real time. So it'll be updated more often than the quarterly report, so people can see on a regular basis. And it was a phenomenal, he included, if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go to the board agenda and look at it. Law enforcement agencies for all the county, he broke it down by race. And then the other piece that they're going to add in there is city of residence for the people who are arrested. Because I think that is a piece that we've been wondering for a long time. Like, are we over policing our community, or are people coming into the community causing crimes, kind of thing? So kind of get a better idea that way. So anyway, that's the end of my story. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, actually, we included the report in the agenda packet. And I know we had that for later in the agenda, but I do want to mention that some of the data points that was reported in his report were along the same lines as what data subcommittee wanted to see and the CEF committee wanted to see. And honestly, what had been asked of like the mayor's conference and the police chiefs, he was able to do to a degree, which was the race and ethnic breakdown of bookings per arresting agency. So they're all in these various charts in the packet here, but that was new information that we've received. Yeah.
So my suggestion is adding to your work plan to review those reports on a regular basis, because if there's more data points you think would be helpful, then you could feed that recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors to be included.
Right. So in regards to the our job recommendations, I think it's just an overview, just to kind of look back at what the Social Justice Task Force recommended a while ago.
Yep. I would say, after looking at some of this, we've made some significant inroads on a lot of these recommendations. There's still some loose ends, so to speak. But maybe that's, that's our work do next, right? 2.0. For our job, but you actually take the time to read through some of this and you go, oh, I've heard of some movement on some of these. You'll be quite surprised at how much further on. So, recommendation 13 is what I was mentioning earlier. And so I think here, given that this was lifted up since 2018, things may have already occurred in regards to this piece here that we just need, to glean some learnings from. But that might have some implications for our committee to look into. And then there's some items on here too that were done or completed, so to speak, but may require follow-up or update, or just to see how are these items working now? Or what are some lessons learned? How can it be improved upon? Things like that.
Yeah, with regard to 13, I'll just let the subcommittee know, that's kind of an ongoing discussion. It's been going on for a while. The court right now is on a county-wide jury selection. I don't think I'm talking out of school to say that the public defender has been advocating much along the lines of what proposed here to encourage a local, more localized. So I can't say anything about decisions in that regard, other than it remains as it is right now as a county-wide jury selection. That's what we do. But obviously we recognize that there is an interest in going. I don't know that it was. I haven't been here long enough to know if it ever was localized like that for jury selection. I don't know the answer to that either way. So I won't say return to that, but whatever it may be, those are discussions that happened. And continue.
Other thoughts? Just take down the note. Move to discuss and review our job data work plans, which is chapter number 3. It says progress as of March 2022. That got put on hold, especially when it comes to maintaining and updating the website.
Yeah, objective 3 was actually one of the objectives we also saw in the full body work plan. And this is one that we kind of identified as like a future work, because it really would require some of these as outcomes of interventions. Some of these things needing to be actually implemented to then measure its impact on racial disparities. I think there are pieces of this that can still be lifted. I almost feel like we should just give objective one to Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
But, you'll see on the side, that last table where it says progress as of March 2022. That's kind of like the history of the movement on some of these things.
I was just gonna say, like, we made progress with the team. And, you know, from that presentation that was given, there will be a review, right? So we'll actually get some of that annual review done. And you said we are getting data from the DA's office.
No, I'm saying that they hired, a planner evaluator. So essentially a data analyst, to support whatever efforts or initiatives they have going on internally. So, all to say that they're at least staffing up for that in that regard, but I don't know what the specific like work projects or they will have them looking into. But at least now they will have the capacity somewhat, which they didn't have before.
Some funding to bring on their institute to do a whole report based off the data.
Yeah, and what we're finding too, even within probation, like, so we have our case management system going live. Staff are being trained up in it now as we speak, but you know, earlier today. So, and that's a huge deal for our department, not had the actual case management system. So that's going to be huge in terms of our ability to do some more rich data analysis and reporting. And a lot of this stuff had, like I said, had not existed before. So, and though we've contracted with evaluators and consultants in the past, there's really nothing like having that capability internally to do a little bit more real-time work, to even validate and verify even what outside agencies or evaluators are looking at as well, and to work in partnership with them. So I know Denise can attest to all of that with our research and data team. But yeah, it's a huge benefit once justice agencies are able to have that internal capability.
Are there any public comments, feedback from folks? Hearing and seeing none. I was good to just look back at this work plan, because this was back in March. Stephanie, see your hand.
Yeah, yes, I just want to say I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, not in person, but on Zoom. And I really feel positive about the reporting that the sheriff's office is doing. It's just it's increasingly improving, and there's a lot of information, and I think it's, I think it's hopeful. I did just want to add that I believe it was Supervisor Anderson who also requested the list of cities that didn't have incidents the next time or whenever. So knowing, because I know Danville was not listed, and I'm sure there were several others, because I think there's 19 cities. And then I think it was Supervisor Joya that that along with the breakdown of who had been booked and what that group represents in terms of the population in those given areas. And then I have to say, I had 3 things and I just felt really encouraged because they all had been answered by the supervisors and I didn't have to make a comment. And I was really encouraged by that. And the other thing I guess I just want to ask is I'm looking at the work plan, and 3, it just says analyze outcomes of intervention, and then intervention is mentioned, conduct assessment of the outcomes of intervention. So have the interventions started? Have they been created yet, or is that to come?
Yeah, I think it's more or less to come, or a little bit of both, because if you look at, so these objectives correspond, these subcommittee objectives correspond with our jobs overall objectives in the overall body's work plan. And then from there, they correlate with the recommendations that are listed here. So in some of the recommendations that were listed, there's certain service areas, so to speak, that are called out as some potential interventions or the need for building up community capacity in serving in these areas. So like diversion, reentry programs, alternatives to detention, pretrial services, in custody programming, things like that. So in some regards, some of those pieces have been implemented and are operating. Others are kind of fairly nascent. So it's a little bit of both, but I don't feel that we are completely there yet to be able to analyze outcomes. That's just my kind of personal take on it. The other piece on this one too is if you see all the way at the last column, progress as of March 2022 under objective 3, the selected policing the teen brain training opportunity that is currently underway. The training has not started just yet. So if you recall, that's the partnership that the county now has with with Strategies for Youth, where we're able to receive 1.1 million in federal funds that was presented to us by Congressman DeSaulnier's office. So that is launching. It hasn't started yet. The training the first cohort of training will take place next April. So again, that's another example of something that needs to go. We need to actually implement it first. There will be some evaluation along the way because we're also able to secure a grant to do an independent evaluation of the implementation of the training. But it just yet to come.
Okay, and then I just, and so thank you for mentioning that, because I know at one of these meetings a while back, I did mention when will the public be able to have an idea of what that training is? Because I do think it's important. I mean, obviously the public's not approving it or anything else, but I would, as a member of the public, I guess I would like to know what the training looks like. Is that going to be made available, or is it going to be? I kind of had suggested that maybe a presentation be done at a Board of Supervisors meeting, or.
Yeah, we did do a brief update at the last data subcommittee meeting last month. That's okay. We do have all these meetings are recorded, so we do have a YouTube channel where you can check back at that, and then the slides are part of last month's agenda packet as well. But you are absolutely right, having an update to the Board of Supervisors is something that we do hope to do, just don't know quite when yet.
Okay, so that was in last month's meeting. This meeting's last month. Okay, and it was okay, and I may have not understood that that's what that was, but okay, thank you. I think it would be helpful though, just for the general public, just to see that this is what, this is what this is what they're doing to have better outcomes with juveniles.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what Stephanie brought up about what Candace said. So I think if there's only a handful of arrests in a city, they weren't included on the list. And the contract cities were included with the sheriff's department, since the sheriff contracts with Danville, Lafayette, Orinda, whatever other contract cities there are. And so Supervisor Anderson asked that those cities be broken out from the sheriff's arrests so that we can kind of see what's happening in each city. Moraga was included, so the assumption is there has to be enough arrests to be included on the list in Danville, Lafayette, and Orinda as well.
Thank you.
And I think we kind of went into number 7 a little bit, before I move us to our next agenda item. Just want to make sure I didn't leave anybody out for public comment or feedback. Okay. The next agenda item is to discuss and review the sheriff's office Q3 oversight report, which is attachment number 4. Heard is an improvement from the last one. I haven't had a chance to look at it, fortunately. Folks have some initial feedback or comments that they would like to share with the group. I'm now open for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest improvement here, in making this report so rich and robust is the bookings by agency by race. Like that was, when I saw that, I was like, oh, holy moly. You see that breakdown. I think I heard Supervisor Joya say that he also wanted to see that in comparison to the race and ethnicity breakdown of the general population for each community, which is the same thing we were all talking about as well. We do know that the county's Department of DCD, what is that? Department of Community Development. Basically, our county's planning department has the ability to pull those numbers up. So that would really be interesting to see.
I think it makes sense to compare them to.
Mhm.
My tablet is so small, but their total bookings is so high.
Yeah, that was one thing that was called out during the meeting as well. The other piece was also looking at, it's on page 26 in the packet, the count of pretrial versus post-trial population.
Been a lot, well, it was a lot of talk, of not too long ago about the, a lot of community folks did some advocacy around like was in Marsh Creek, and things of that nature. I'm just curious, because it looks like a lot of folks. Population to Yeah, any comments? Again, just feedback on what folks can, what may still be missing.
Well, I'll say that when I look at things, of course, I start to think of it from a lens of, appropriate programming that could very well be available for folks that are in custody. And so though we have we have some of this broken down by race, some of the other demographic information that we had talked about in the past, like, age ranges, gender, though we know that it's mostly males. But things of that nature to then want to determine what sort of services and programs are available that could be tailored to some of those populations that are in there. And then also depending on what communities they are coming from, what resources could be even available to them there, whether it's reentry programming or some sort of prevention related work too. So that's how this data kind of helps inform some of my thinking.
So they have that data, right? Like if we were to, if we were to do this and ask for also a breakdown by age or something like that, that would be available.
So,
I would hope
yeah.
so, right? I don't know, I just don't know how they collate. So the reason I asked that, because it does almost kind of sound like a silly question as I said it, is that, you are gonna cross-reference different data points. So, and then over time also, right? So what I like about that is, yeah, you can, this oversight report is directed to a very specific issue.
Mhm.
And so we expand those data points now because we're looking at a new way to use the data. I don't know, new maybe not the right word, but a different way to use the data. If we have this one extra element, we can then use it to target solutions. And that's one way, because we spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about next steps, right?
Right.
And I mean, I think that's a really good one, which is what extra data points, we had a goal for this set of data. What extra data points, if we're looking at the next step, do we need to say, oh, we can these, if all the age is one way or another in particular spots, what can we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really
Yeah.
good.
To throw more things on our plate, but I was just looking at the mental health stat, and I'm just curious because there is a decline. I'm wondering if that's because we have other programs like.
Where do you see that?
It's on page 39 and 38. So the 5150 call, mental health evaluation team deployment, been a decline since 2022. I'm wondering if we can, and again, I don't want to put more on our plate, but I'm wondering if we can get data from other agencies, like how many calls have they responded to for mental health crisis, to see like, how well is it working? Is this the reason why we're getting a decline in calls out?
Yeah, he did speak about the A3, which is on 37, and how those numbers are actually ticking up, and why that's a good thing, because they're more, I should say more equipped, but it comes with a full package or suite of resources. Can't speak totally to all things A3, and I don't know if there's more you could share, Gilbert, but and I think he mentioned that if he could, he would love to just give it all to A3, but there are still circumstances where you still need law enforcement presence there, unfortunately.
And yes, we have expanded services for A3. I believe in 2022, I have the numbers that I can pull up as we're talking. But we did expand services. We have thousands of calls. We have more staff for it. Our goal is really to enhance the 24/7 access. Right now, it's only specific times during the day. Due to staffing, we have expanded on that as well. So we're incrementally increasing the amount of days that this service is available. And we are receiving some great response from the community.
That's good.
I see Stephanie and then Jill.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add, when I have, spoken before, I have, one of the things I asked for in terms of the sheriff's report was age. And I do think age is really important. I mean, to somebody that's not an expert and doesn't have any experience with all this, I still would think it would help a lot to dictate, the type of support services that might help that individual, depending on their age and what's going on. And then I had another just general question. Where do you obtain like updated population information about like a given jurisdiction or city? To me, it seemed like you would always have to rely upon the census that's done
Yeah.
every years. Is there a way to get more updated? So, I mean, I would imagine that's hard because people are moving around and everything. So that was my question. Where are you getting it, or how updated is it?
Well, we're getting it right now from the 2020 census, and that is the most up-to-date and valid estimates of the population by racial background and by age. When it comes closer to the next census in 2020, like in 2027, 2028, some other sources are the American Community Survey, things along those lines. But, right now, the census is the best that we have. With the knowledge that, certainly in a place like California and our county, the county is changing and growing dramatically, and the distribution, particularly of youth, is changing rapidly as well. So that's the best caveat that we have.
Thank you.
And to answer your question, Stephanie, DCD, our Department of Conservation and Development, the demographic information for all jurisdictions is there. So you can, hold on, I'm getting a message. So you can look on that site to see any jurisdiction, what the demographics are. So a couple of things, I know the sheriff has provided age information in the past, so I know that's readily available. So I think that is important for programming. The other piece that the CAB heard about was non-English speakers. So that might be something that you want to look at from a racial equity point of view. If you have non-English speakers, how do you communicate with that population? And then there was one more thing that I was just thinking about. Average stay. And I know that information has been provided in the past as well. So, that would, programming would be dependent on that. If somebody's only there for an average of 7 days versus, somebody's there for 180 days, your programming is going to be very different. So that might be something that you want to kind of figure out, what is the average stay in each one of the facilities.
Jump in, just talk a little bit about the A3. I have some of the updated numbers.
You mind speaking up just a little bit?
Yes, can you hear me there, Jill?
I can, and I was going to just make one more point about A3 if I could before you give the numbers. So in our county, we can only do one transfer from the 911 system. In other words, when somebody calls 911, that call could be transferred to fire to handle the call. And so A3 is working on a contract with our fire department so that it can, our fire division can be the dispatcher for the A3 system, because there can't be a second transfer to our A3. So that's been one of the challenges when somebody, we've been pushing out the phone number to contact A3 directly, but 911 one transfer is all. So that is one of the challenges with getting the crisis team there.
So can you repeat that? So A3 would enter into a contract with fire?
They're in the process. Yeah. So, and besides, fire has the dynamic ambulance positioning software, which is what they're going to try to do with the A3 system too, is dynamic positioning. Like where's the best place to position those when the calls come in, just like they do with ambulances.
Sure.
In 2022, we held 2,986 callers. Over 40% of calls were from family or law enforcement. 75% of callers' needs are resolved over the phone. 1 in 4 callers need an in-depth response. More response teams impact. We have 15 teams with an average talk and in-person response time of 1 to 2 hours. 534 teams were dispatched in 2022. And we're currently building out the program by hiring and training call center team members, improving our technology, refining our contracts and services, as Jill pointed out, and looking at the call triage process itself. And none of this happens without the partnership from our community and the voice of our community population. Our number for this, the direct number is 844-844-5544. The 83 Miles Hall Crisis Call Center.
Anything else? It looks like we're right on time. It's almost 4 o'clock.
Well, I do want to say I'm heartened by the level of improvement and enhancements in like just and almost about every like nook and cranny of our county structure to respond differently to the needs, the vulnerable needs and conditions within our county. It just warms my heart. That's all I want to say. It feels good.
I think that's the great thing about being chief equity officer with Contra Costa Health is this is my daily work. This is my life. We get up and breathe for this, right? To help improve lives. Yeah, I think that's really I'm seeing it at so many different levels. I'm excited about the new co-directors and the work ahead. But this work is just so gratifying.
Yeah,
You see the results.
yeah.
Thank you.
Before we wrap it up and adjourn, is there any other thoughts, comments? Anything you may have missed? Right. You will adjourn, and our next meeting is scheduled for November 30th from 3 to 5, same place, same time. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
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 Bye. Bye, everyone.
What did I do?
Great meeting. Thank you.